Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are so glad to have you here today. My name is Dan Allen. I'm the product marketing manager for Connections. And today we've got a really exciting topic on breaking down silos and learning how connections and integrations to Microsoft 365 can help you work more seamlessly. And also, I want to introduce the two presenters that we have today. We're very fortunate to have two of our product management experts, Adam Gartenberg and Renee Schimmer. So Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you after I do just a couple of quick things. One is that questions that you may have, feel free to put those in the chat window. That should be on your GoToWebinar control panel, and ask those, and we'll do our best to answer those as we go. If we have time at the end, we will do a bit of Q&A and share questions with the entire group. So, Adam, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Dan. So today we're going to cover a bit about information silos, since that is one of the main benefits that comes from integrating Connections with the Microsoft ecosystem. And we'll talk a bit about the impact they can have on employees there. And then we'll introduce the features that were launched with Connections 7 for integration into the Microsoft ecosystem, and give you a demo where you can see those live in action. And then we'll wrap up a bit about some more of the benefits there and additional resources that may be helpful for you as you plan your own upgrades and rollout. So let's start off looking at what causes information silos. From its inception, Connections was built around the central premise of openness and discoverability. And this was specifically done to make sure that people can easily find the content they need, the experts they need to connect with, to get their jobs done effectively and efficiently. And Connections delivers on this through a number of ways, such as a single content store, through communities that default to being open, through expertise tagging and a universal search that helps you quickly find what you're looking for, wherever it may be in Connections. We feel really strongly about this because we know that information silos can cause problems at an organizational and at an individual level. At a high level, they can lead to content that's duplicated or time wasted recreating what already exists. We know that inhibiting the sharing of information can hamper innovation and slow growth. And at an individual level, employees waste many hours trying to find information that already exists, or they sit around waiting to be granted access to shared folders or documents. That ends up taking up their own time as well as their colleagues' time as they work their way through contact after contact, trying to find the answers they need, or who has access to information or knows where it might be, knows which version of the file is the latest, and so on. So what can cause these kinds of information silos? They happen when you have overlapping and disparate applications that don't talk to each other. Or that are only used in pockets of an organization. And we know this is really common across companies of all sizes, across companies of all industries. You have some parts of the organization that are using one tool, others go out and find their own. And the result is you end up wasting a lot of time going application to application, searching for what you need. You're constantly forced to switch context as you have to switch applications, open new things up, try to remember where things are, or fumble around doing the same search over and over again in other places. And that context switching alone can be really detrimental to the flow of work as you're trying to stay focused on exactly what it is you just need to get done. We also know that disconnected and dispersed content can play a large role here too. You end up with duplicated documents. I create something and share it. You download a copy and upload it somewhere else. Now suddenly you've got version control issues. You don't know where the latest version is. I waste half a day updating something only to discover that you've made updates too. Now we need to bring them together and figure out what the latest content is, and that wastes time. People make mistakes because they pull up something they think is the latest and it turns out not to be. And overall, it's just a very inefficient way of working. You don't have a single way of finding what you need across everything that's being worked on across the organization. And then the last piece that comes into play here are the boundaries that can separate employees and their information, right? You end up with content stored in walled gardens And so not only is it kept away somewhere, I may not even know that it exists. And that can lead to a whole host of other problems where it's not just that I'm duplicating work, but I'm losing out all of the benefit that may come from your experience, your expertise, or prior work that was done elsewhere in the organization. So going on to the next page, this is not just a kind of a theoretical common sense type of thing. When the study was done recently, they found that 80% of companies reported a moderate or high degree of information silos in their organizations. And I'm sure we've all experienced this firsthand as well. And the result is slower collaboration, as people don't know where to find things or who to connect with. Lower rates of innovation, because ideas are getting buried, they're not being shared. So much of the innovation that happens in organizations comes from that cross-pollination of people finding out what their colleagues are working on, finding things that might be applicable to them, being able to add to an idea that someone else had, or getting feedback on something that you have. It's the equivalent of those elevator conversations or cafeteria conversations where you just grab lunch with a coworker and you're talking about what you're doing, and suddenly something that might not have been obvious comes to light, or that might be applicable in another area. And especially when you're working in a large spread out organization, or even a smaller organization with multiple offices, or like so many of us are doing now and likely will be for the foreseeable future, working remotely, you need a platform that really can foster those types of discussions, those knowledge accidents, and replicate them in a virtual world when you don't have the same kind of opportunities for fostering them in person. And so in addition to lower innovation, we know there are things like slower response to customer concerns. It just takes longer to find what you need, to look up that information, and to get back to the customer, or even responding quickly to market disruptions, again, like we've all experienced over the past year. And these are impacts that can be felt both in the top line and the bottom line of an organization's financials. So on the next page, let's start to look at what we can do and how Connections is helping break down these barriers and these silos and make it easy for you to get the work done no matter where you may want to be working. So we've specifically targeted this problem with the latest release of Connections. As I mentioned before, we really built Connections around the idea of eliminating silos and boundaries. And so we're looking to do that between Connections and the Microsoft ecosystem now as well. We've added capabilities both inside of Connections and inside of the Microsoft solutions to this end. So starting with inside of Connections, you can start a conversation with your colleagues in Microsoft Teams from any of your Connections contacts, including from their business card, their profile page, and the important to MEMAR in OrientMe. You can also immediately share and start a conversation around any page in Connections by clicking the Teams icon that you'll now find on all of the pages. You can eliminate silos and content storage by bringing your SharePoint libraries into your communities, so they're right there readily available along with the rest of your Connections content. And Windows users can also round-trip edit their files in Office through the desktop plugin, so that any changes that they make in their files are automatically saved right back into Connections. So no more needing to go and then save it, edit it, save it again, upload it back into Connections. It's all just done seamlessly by clicking edit inside the window there, inside your browser in Connections. On the next page, we can see the areas where we've integrated Connections inside of Microsoft solutions as well. So here we're removing boundaries by giving you one-click access to your Connections community applications, such as files, wikis, forums, the activity feed, and more, right inside of your Teams channels. You can also insert files or any recent content from Connections right into your conversations simply by clicking on the Connections icon in the chat bar. And then lastly, we've introduced a new Microsoft Outlook add-in that lets you seamlessly shift content back and forth between Outlook and Connections. So that can be moving file attachments into or out of Connections or your emails, or quickly looking up details on your meeting participants from their profiles right inside of Outlook. And this will, importantly, this will work on all Outlook clients, so Windows, Mac, web, and mobile. So That's a lot of ways of Connections is integrating in and removing those boundaries for you. Let's take a look at what this actually looks like in action. So Renee, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. So my name is Renee, and I'm going to walk you through 4 different demo scenarios based on a company called Woodburn Services, showing you how we can actually integrate Microsoft 365 with Connections and eliminate that problem of having content spread out over different silos and bring people together. So let's set the stage. We are looking at Woodburn Services, an organization that, like most any of us, about a year ago has moved all of their employees to work from home. And Felix is their head of IT, was actually proactive in saying, if we do that, we need to make sure that every user has simple access, easy access to our support organization. So he asked his team to set up a Connections self-help community for the IT support. So whenever a user at home has a problem, they can get to the community, find support articles, participate in a forum, or reach out to the IT support team members to find the answers that they need to stay operational. So the next 4 scenarios are based on this backdrop, and I'll walk you through the different integration points on how Felix and his team set this up to help their end users at Woodburn Services. So first off, if we go back at the beginning, there were quite a few people who had problems setting up the VPN. The team members need access to VPN for certain applications that they use, but Connections and Teams, etc., are available without VPN, yet users depend on it. So here we are now looking at Mandy, who ran into the problem that her VPN is not working anymore. She was fairly new to the company. She didn't know who works in the IT organization or how to find help. But with the help of Connections, she's actually able to locate Felix and then ask him for help. So let's take a look at how this plays out. So here we are on the Connections homepage. This is what we call Orient Me, where you can see what's going on in your network, but you can also search for people. So Mandy is now on her own profile and switches over to the directory. And since she is looking for somebody who can help her with the IT support, she just types in IT support help. And wouldn't you know it, there's Felix with the tags all around IT support and help. She goes to his profile page, and you saw that she clicked on the chat button, which now automatically brings her over into Teams. So here she is in her Teams client with Felix, and she can type in the message asking about VPN support, if he can help her with that. So now let's switch over to Felix's side on Teams here, and he sees the message coming in from Mandy and responds to her that sure, that he can help her, but first he wants to add a wiki to this Teams chat. So how do we do that? How do we bring Connections content into Teams? You can add the Connections app to the Teams client as a tab app. He just did that. He selected the Connections app, and now he wants to link to the IT support community and specifically the wiki within it, where we have the self-help articles. So he selects the wiki. This is now being added to the Teams channel as a tab app. It's called Woodburn IT Support Wiki. And there will be a post in that in the chat, and there we go. Right within Teams, he now sees the wiki, and there's one step-by-step guide to set up a VPN. But in addition, he also just wants to share the community with her, because apparently she's not aware that there is one. So he can share any recent content or file within this one-to-one chat or group chat, if it was. So here now is the link to that actual IT support community that now she can reference in the future. So let's switch back to Mandy's view. Mandy sees those posts in the one-to-one chat here. There's the wiki, and I'll just show you that you can also open it up from here. It's now permanently added as a tab app in this chat with Felix, and there is remote access. That's what she's interested in, the step-by-step guide. So this is a wiki living in Connections, right? I just want to make sure everybody understands. This is from the IT support community. She reads the article, and let's assume she found the answer. We're speeding this up a little bit. So she thanks Felix by mentioning him. And now we have a comment on that wiki in Connections, easily accessed from within Teams. And she also wants to actually add Felix to her network. So she goes to his profile, all within Teams, sends an invite within Connections to add him to her network. So in the future, whenever Felix posts something new in Connections, right? Maybe he publishes an update to the wiki article or anything else, she will see an update like that in the activity stream that we saw at the beginning of the demo, where she sees updates from within her network. Now they're connected, and now even more content will be available to her on a notification basis. So that was the first part. Recap, so we were able to find somebody in Connections, reach out to them via chat right from within the profile page. Then we were able to add content from a Connections community to a team chat, as well as share references to existing content within Teams chat so it's available to everybody. That breaks down the barrier because now you have content available no matter where you work. Now let's look at the second scenario. Now we're actually looking at the IT support team. So it's these three people, Felix, Fatima, and Ben. And Ben actually finds a comment on one of the wiki pages where somebody has a question that he doesn't really readily have an answer to. But he reaches out to his colleagues, and turns out working together they can find a problem within their closed group, but now how do they make that available to the broader organization? So let's see how that works. We are actually looking at Ben's Connections Orient Me page right now. I'm logged in as Ben, one of the IT guys, and he sees that card right in the middle where Mandy says to Roberto that she also has the same problem. So Ben is curious who Roberto is. He's a regional sales manager, so that's the profile card that every user in Connections has, but he still isn't quite sure what the problem is. So he jumps to the wiki. There's an article about VPN background, and there is, there are 3 comments from Roberto, who started it, who is interested in how to assign bandwidth on his home router because his kids are playing too much and his meetings don't perform well. Mandy has the same problem, and Roberto thinks, well, not sure if IT can handle this, but good thing is Ben is in IT, but he doesn't know the answer either. But see up there in the right-hand corner, he clicks on the Share to Teams button. And what this does is, whenever you see that on a page, it actually takes that page and you can share it to a channel. This here is the Woodburn IT support channel, the private channel of the IT support team, where he now takes this page to kick off the discussion to see if they can solve that problem together. So he sees the question, can't answer it, brings it into his closed Teams channel, and here we are now in the Woodburn IT support channel. There it is. And here we have Felix, Ben, and Fatima working together. So he posted it, and while he was thinking, Fatima already responded. So as he scrolls down to review Fatima's answer, he sees that she actually found a similar question in the forum before and had already researched the internet for a couple of answers. So let's wait. Okay, so there is her response that she compiled, and he sees it's quite a complete listing here. So he does a quick read through, and while he's reading that, he actually sees a response from Felix coming in. So he sees that actually Felix has also seen it and agrees that this is a very thorough write-up. So as a last step here, he confirms this is good to go. So let's switch over to Fatima's session. And she responds that she will post it right away. So let's see how she does that. She can directly switch to the forum here. There it is, separate bandwidth. So she can go in and paste in her reply that she prepared earlier. So she clicked reply in the form right here in the Teams client, and there is the answer that she wrote up. And now we have the actual entry here within the forum. Beautiful. Okay, now she can switch back to the chat and say, done, the post is live. And she sees that Felix is responding, and now they have a great answer within the support forum available to everyone who has the same problem. This was the second scenario. Let's look at the next one. In the third scenario, we have another classical silo, right? A SharePoint library. SharePoint has often been used as more of a document management solution rather than an enterprise social network or a real collaborative community-based solution, right? So companies might have a lot of libraries of content, but people aren't really aware of it. It's hard to find. So this is where we start out. Ben actually remembers that there used to be a SharePoint library with user manuals for headsets. Right? Woodburn Services has passed out a lot of headsets to the people when they moved home, so everybody can do proper video conference calls. But some people have problems, so they wanted to find out how can we make those user manuals easily available to everybody. So he asked Felix to add that library to the support community. So let's see how we can do that. So again, here's Ben. We're logged in as Ben in the Teams client. And he types in a message to Felix saying, hey, we have this SharePoint library with these user manuals. Can we add it to the community? And he pastes in the link to that SharePoint library and also embeds the link to the community just to make sure that Felix knows which community we're talking about. So here again, he can click on the connections icon below and select from recent content or files or anything that he wants to share. Now let's switch over to Felix, where this message just came in. Of course, he knows what the Woodburn IT support community is, so no need to click on there. Just gives it a thumbs up. But he isn't aware of this SharePoint library. He has no idea what this is, so he clicks on it, which then, of course, will open up this library with a set of user manuals in SharePoint. There it is. That looks useful. So he copies the URL, which is outside of the shared screen here, but then he goes to the Woodburn IT support community. He is the owner, so he sees this customize button. And as he clicks the customize button, our new highlights panel pops up where he can now add applications or widgets or change the layout of what this landing page for the community looks like. And there he also sees the SharePoint library app that he can add to the page. And as he clicks it, the page refreshes and you see the grid of how the page is laid out. And as he scrolls down there on the right is the SharePoint library, which of course now needs to be configured. It doesn't know where to point to. So as he clicks on edit, in context, he can just paste in the URL that he grabbed earlier to the SharePoint library. And there it is. And as he closes, the page refreshes and it will now establish the connection to the SharePoint library and bring it right into the context of this support community where everybody can find it. He thinks it should be moved up a little bit, so let me show you how we can drag and drop apps on the page. It's as easy as that, right? You grab it, you move it up there, so now it's in the center of the page, out of the silo, into where everybody can find it. So here's the SharePoint library now in that IT support community, and whenever somebody has a problem with this Sennheiser, there's the user manual. Okay, that was the ability to bring a SharePoint library into the mix of a community. Now let's take a look at the fourth and last scenario, where Felix, heading up this IT support team, is now being asked to report back to the CEO how this whole project went, right? Everybody was moved to work from home. There was an initial uptick in support phone calls and emails, but as the community was ramped up and more people were aware of it, community traffic went up, emails and phone calls to support went down. That's the metric by which he goes by. So he asked Ben to update that report with the latest April numbers, so he can then present it back and report on the success of this overall project on how bringing everything together. So now here we are again. Ben is the actor, and he sees the email coming in from Felix in Outlook, says, hey, we need the latest monthly report on the community traffic. Can you get it done? So Ben switches over to Connections, and here's the intranet landing page of Connections. He manages his files and Connections files. So he goes to his files, and there's the quarterly staff briefing report where these metrics are kept. So he views it in the Connections file viewer, and here is that graph, that trend line that I talked about of the phones and emails going down while the community traffic goes up. So now we start a round trip editing where I click on Edit on Desktop, and if the desktop plugin is installed, this will now open up this file in PowerPoint. There we are, and you see the Connections ribbon bar where you can lock the file, which is what he's doing right now. So if you lock it, only he can make changes. And now he enters the table for the chart, adding the line for April of 21 and the latest numbers that he got from the metrics in Connections. So there are the new numbers. Here's the trend line. He can now publish it back to Connections. A new version of this file will now be generated. He adds it and a comment here, and you see the checkbox to unlock the file is automatically set. So now the file is not locked anymore. A version is uploaded, and it's now in Connections where it's ready to be shared. You can share it with people, you can share it with communities, and the most important point is there's a single point of truth here, right? Even if he shares it with Felix, which he's going to do now, or with the community, no matter where you access the file from, you will always come back to this one version. There is no replication. There is no separate instance. Connections is really unique in making sure that you have one version of a file, always the latest version. Everybody has access to the same. So he added Felix, but since this all started in email, he actually responds to Felix's email and said that he made the updates. And now let me show you how the new Outlook integration works. So we have an add-in here that allows you to insert files from Connections as a link or attachment, but it also works the other way around to where as you receive an email, you can save the email or the attachment to an activity, to files, etc. Right? So it works both ways. Right now, Ben wants to insert that staff briefing PowerPoint into the email, but again, not as an attachment. He could also choose from community files and others, but this is what he wants. He adds the file to the email. Since this is a private file, he's being warned that the person who receives this should also be added as a reader, or he can create a shared link that will then be inserted so Felix has access to it. And there it is. Again, not an attachment, it's a link, so we don't duplicate and create redundant content. He can send it off, and now he has completed his task of updating Felix with the new numbers. Okay, so those were the 4 demo scenarios that I wanted to take you through. I hope this shows you clearly on how you can actually bring Microsoft 365 together with HCL Connections to make sure you don't have content somewhere in a silo where nobody can reach it. With the example here of the self-help IT support community, where accessibility in terms of it has to be easy to find things is paramount, right? Everything here centered around the idea that end users can find things easily and have access to it as they need it. So with this, I'll hand it back to Adam to summarize what we've seen. Adam?
Thanks, Renee. That was great. And hopefully that gives you all a really good view of what this actually looks like and how it could work for your organization. So just to recap, actually, before I recap this here, we have a quick poll that we want to put out about the integration and what you think will be most relevant for you. And while you're going through that, again, we just saw a lot of the benefits here that that comes from this integration. Allows you to find, access, and share content much faster than you can today. Really simplifies how you can work between Connections and Microsoft. It makes that work more seamless. Allows you to really amplify your team communication, speed up your decision making, and make everyone more productive because they're able to find the information they need. They're able to communicate in a way that makes the most sense for them, and you don't have that productivity drag that can come from having to constantly jump back and forth between applications. And it gives you all of the benefits of your Connections environment and your Connections platform wherever it is that you're working. There are a lot of benefits that are really unique to Connections in terms of having a single place to go to work, to bring organization to your collaboration amongst your team, across projects, departments, or entire business units. That is really unique out in the market today. And so being able to keep all the benefits of that, but bring it to where you're working is something that we see as a real benefit to everyone involved. And just going on to the next page to summarize it once more, you know, you can see 50% improvement in the time spent switching back and forth between Connections and Microsoft applications. With that one-click sharing, you can start collaborating immediately with your cross-functional team members and immediately share content with team members from Connections into Teams, right? No more copying URLs, opening up chats, finding people. It's just one click and you're in a conversation, or one click and you're sharing that information out to the discussion in the team channel. So a lot of benefits there. And just looking on in general, we know that on the next page, there are a lot of benefits that come from Connections 7 beyond the integration with the Microsoft ecosystem. And since we know a lot of the customers that we're talking with, the companies we're talking with, are either undergoing that upgrade or planning it now, we're looking at how we can best benefit all of you there. And so as a reminder, in addition to that integration, Connections 7 brought a major improvement in how you can set up and work with communities to really deliver a tailored experience for your teams. And that includes templates that can allow you to set up new communities much faster than you could before, with just a couple of clicks, getting it set up with the layout, the look and feel, graphics that you want. But much more importantly, it's really unique in being able to bring forward content as well. As I mentioned before, we know one of the main benefits of Connections is providing that structure to your collaboration. So when you're coming in, whether you're starting up a project or joining midstream, you can quickly understand what's going on. Everything is being done with the right type of application for the right type of content, whether it's a forum for Q&A, a wiki for collaborative content creation, file share for documents, ideation blogs, news updates, and so on. That's something that's really unique to that Connections community. And what Connections templates lets you do are capture not just the look and feel of the community, but the content itself. So if you want everyone running a certain type of project to follow the similar structure, you can set that up. If there's certain project plan documents, Q&A documents or forum content that you want replicated across the organization for a certain type of initiatives or projects, all of that can be set up as part of the template. So you don't need to go and recreate that content over and over again, but you can bring those best practices forward as part of it. We also added new capabilities to the highlights landing page for the community, giving you more control of that layout and look and feel, and making it that much easier for anybody to be a community owner and set up a community to work and function the way they needed to for that content. We also added new capabilities on the deployment side, including automated scripts that let you set up your Connections environment in a matter of hours. So especially for upgrades or even just for proof of concept, you want to get Connection 7 set up in your environment to try it out and make sure it's set up what you need before you do your upgrade. Again, literally 2 to 3 hours to have a fully functioning Connections environment up and running. It really can be a game changer for how quickly you can roll out new versions or try it out. So I would highly encourage you to look into that as well if you haven't already. And then there are other new capabilities like export to PDF, making it very easy to save your content and connections in a formatted manner to a PDF or for printing it out to capture that later. So a lot of benefits there. Here, let me share the results of the last poll before I go into the next one. So it looks like Teams and Office are the most popular integration points here. Although a lot of you also want to do Outlook and SharePoint as well. So that's really helpful for us to know, but it also points to the value you can get here. And then we've got one more poll as well about your plans to upgrade. Just curious to see where all of you are on your plans to upgrade to Connection 7. So I'll give you another a little more time for those to come in here. So it looks like a lot of you have that planned out there. And again, if you haven't already, highly recommend that you go check out those automated scripts for that. The component pack, again, new options there for cloud native deployment of that. If you haven't rolled out the component pack, I really encourage you to look at that and start to look at that. A lot of the new capabilities are only available through the component pack, but the ability to customize your environment through Customizer and some of the other things that are available there, really something that will benefit you as you do your rollouts and really benefit your end users for those of you using Connections already. So let's go close the poll and share the results here as well. And again, it looks like almost half of you are planning to upgrade to Connection 7 in the next 12 months, and a good number of you have already upgraded in just the last couple of months already. So that's great to see, and again, would encourage all of you to go to check that out, download it, and start getting your demo or your development environments or your proof of concept environments up and running on that. So just to close things out here, on the next slide, we have some resources here for you to look at as you're planning your deployment. We have documentation available there, and I responded to one of the questions with that as well, where you can go find more information about integrating Connections with Teams, as well as the end user documentation there for the end users and how to make use of that, and of course the rest of the integration there as well. And as always, we'll recommend our website as a good place to go to learn more about it, to get details, feature and benefit charts if you need to share those internally, and other information that can be helpful for you. So I know we've answered a number of questions already in the Q&A. Please feel free to post additional questions there too. There's some questions about best practices, and again, we would suggest looking at the links that we have out there right now. In terms of deployment and best practices around how to do the integration or how to make recommendations to the users, I will certainly highlight the benefits that can come from having all of your content in one place, right? That is one of the overarching benefits of Connections. And so being able to go and have all the benefits of, being able to look up people's profiles and search for expertise, being able to search for content, whether it's in communities and in personal blogs or wikis, finding content that's been uploaded to Connections, having all of that in one place, just knowing that wherever it is, you can find it in Connections is one of the real benefits of having that platform. And so my recommendation would be to continue to do that and then integrate in where you need it. So where you want to make your files available or have it accessible for people with their Teams channels or in their conversations, bring that integration in, add your files to your community files to that channel that's associated with that team, so that all of your content remains in one place, but you still have that quick access to it when you're having your conversations or when you're working in teams. Similarly, being able to quickly store information, add it to Connections, or add a link from Connections into your email. It allows you to keep it in one place. You have a single version of the truth for that file, because you know that the latest version and the only version is stored inside Connections, but then you can quickly send people a link to it rather than sending attachments, and now suddenly you're in version control nightmare as people download, work on it locally, send it around elsewhere, and now people don't know where to go for the latest version, or they're left out of the loop, versus easily being able to add someone to a community, and now they instantly have access to all of that history, all organized, can quickly find the files. You don't need to worry about forwarding on a half dozen email threads that may or may not have the information they need in there, for example.
Adam, it would probably be good to let people know that are still here that there is a handout, which is a copy of the slides that we presented today, which you can download from
Very good point. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
I see, looking through some of the other questions, so there's a question about the Outlook integration, make it possible to integrate with the activity stream like the old Outlook plugin. So one of the things we had to change with this approach, Microsoft had deprecated the approach we had in the past to the Outlook plugin. In the past, our plugin had pretty much served as a freestanding application that just resided in the sidebar of Outlook. And Microsoft has changed that approach to integrations, where everything really needs to be much more tactical, I think, in terms of what you're doing. Very action oriented rather than serving as a standalone interface. It's something that really is designed to be, I want to insert a file, I want to add a person, I want to move a file back and forth. Or it might be like you've experienced elsewhere, I want to add a link to a web conference, for example. And so we followed that model when we recreated the Outlook add-in. I don't believe we have integration to browse your activity stream there. We do have the ability to add a status update in as part of it. So if I do want to add a file and upload a file from an email and post it out to my network inside of Connections, you can do that. But again, in line with the Microsoft, the Microsoft model, it is much more transactional in nature than a permanent window into Connections like we had in the past. So, and to answer another question, that is a little bit different than the integration into the Outlook, into the Notes client as well. There was a question about Connections being available outside of Notes. That's something that's always been available. Connections has always been licensable and purchasable separately. And again, that's part of the reason we're doing this integration here, is we know we have customers that are not Notes and Domino customers, and we want to be able to give them as many benefits as possible of having that integration, not having to jump back and forth when using Connections. Renee, I don't know if there's any questions you see that you want to call out that haven't been addressed, or we might want to address here as well.
So there was one question that I haven't answered yet, whether this the recording of the demo could be made available. So I am happy to actually record the demo section of it and add it to our YouTube channel as a video there. And what you need to know about Connections series, so we'll put it there.
Yeah, the recording will be there if you put it there, and it will also be everyone that attended, as well as those that didn't attend, weren't able to attend today, will get a follow-up email that has the recording of this session in its entirety attached to it. So You'll get it one way or the other.
There was a question about availability. Everything we've shown here today shipped with Connection 7 a couple months ago, so all of this is generally available. There's a question about future webinars and what's planned for the next version. We have been hard at work on that, and we will certainly have the time coming up where we'll start to share more details on the next version of Connections. But we've got some really exciting things coming in the next release that's going to be very much focused on the user experience, and we will have more to share about that in the coming weeks and months.
So just 1 minute, and then I will share a link to the YouTube channel we mentioned. So I'll post that in just 1 second.
Mm-hmm. And there's a question about which integration features require the Connections component pack, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong, Renee, but I believe all of these require the component pack. The one I'm not sure about is the Office integration. I'm not sure if that is requiring the component pack or not.
The Office integration, the desktop plugin does not require the component pack. That's the desktop plugin you need to install, and then it will work. Neither does the SharePoint works without the component pack.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so there's the link to the YouTube channel. I think you should all see it. Okay.
Actually, Renee,
I think that covers the bulk of the questions here.
I didn't see the link go out. Did the link go into the chat window?
It's in the chat. I responded to a question and answered, said send to all.
Oh, okay.
Is there a better way to send it?
There's also a chat on your dashboard.
Oh, there. Another twist. Yes, there it is.
Yeah, we see it now, Renee.
Good.
Thank you. Well, I guess that closes off the webinar for today. We certainly appreciate your time and effort. There will be a follow-up email, as Jan mentioned, with links to the recording of the webinar in case you want to review it again or share it with someone. And we look forward to meeting with you soon for our next webinar, which is scheduled in June. Thank you very much.